Good evening. Friday night, Marc, Lowe in Tokyo, and I've been cleaning this room. I'm still in the process of cleaning and organizing this place since moving back in. And I discovered a number of old CDs. Actually, I had some This Dark Shroud CDs, and there's Marc and Sunny from Fukuoka days. This Dark Shroud with Joe, the side project, which is included on the new compilation, this 2019 era. This was the first album, the new TDS post-solo, the first duo CD was Beneath the Skin. I had this, and some other odds and ends, some weird things like this kind of single for Broken Glass, versions of Broken Glass. And this was a photo someone took of me, and I effectorized it and made a single CD. But going back though, because tonight's talk, it's not about those, and it's not about David Bowie's Outside, which I did with John Major the other night. It's about Chattering Man's chattering. You see, it's not my mouth actually. This was my first ever experience recording a CD, recording in a studio, using a studio mic to record music. And it was also the first time that my music was on a CD. And it was also the first time, in fact, that I had ever written songs. And I've spoken about this in the essay I wrote last year. I wrote about this in before without and or beginning essay. I talked about Chattering Men, and I especially talked about Glass Gecko, which was my band, which came after this. But this was my first ever, not my first ever band. I played drums in middle school and high school in sort of, bands or with friends and stuff like that. But my first band in Fukuoka, in Japan, and it really was my first real band experience in the sense that we were doing, well, let's put it this way, my first original band. And the first time I was the lead man because I was singing lead vocals in the band rather than playing drums, which is what I had done before. I was not a guitarist, I was not a bassist. I learned to play guitar after, and that's part of the story. So why am I talking about Chattering Men now, apart from the fact that I stumbled across a CD? Actually, it's not the first time I'd stumbled across this in my room, like in history. Why now? Well, I realized this CD was recorded and released both in 2014. It may have been 2015, actually, that we actually shared it. I don't remember, actually. Maybe it was 2014, because actually we were performing in 2014. We all met. I'm going to tell this story of Chattering Men again in a different way than I did in the essay. So we met as a friend of a friend, Bonenkai year-end thing, right around this time of year, but 2013, now we go back, right around Christmas time, end of year time, an acquaintance of mine invited me to this Bonenkai, and it was a music-related thing, and her friends showed up, and there were this guy in a leather jacket and his buddy with a camera, and he was a guitarist, and we did a Led Zeppelin song together spontaneously. I sang Stairway to Heaven because he liked Led Zeppelin. He said, "Can you sing?" I said, "Yeah," and kind of shocked everyone because before this time I was not doing music. I was totally had been focused on fiction writing at Brown University. I graduated. I came to Kyushu University to teach literature and some language stuff, language classes in English. And no one really knew that I could sing or play instruments, which I wasn't playing instruments. I, of course, was a drummer, but so I sang, and he was surprised, everyone was surprised. And I realized more and more, I was already realizing at that time that I really, really, really wanted to do music again. Again, meaning, I'd been a drummer, like I said, in middle school, high school, and I had sung from time to time, but I'd never been afforded the opportunity, let's say, of being in a band as the lead singer, okay, lead vocalist. I was always playing drums or doing something like this. So I sang, and I contacted the friend who had introduced me to this other friend and invited me to this year-end thing. And I said, can I get in touch with him? She said, he's on Messenger, but he's a professional. He has a studio. Don't bother him too much. And I said, okay. And I just sent him a mail, and I said, I really want to get back into music. I don't play guitar. I don't play keyboards. I was a drummer, but, I really want to sing. And do you know anyone that might be looking for a vocalist? And he said, yeah, there's a guy in my studio, a guy who visits my studio. He's got a 3-piece band, and he sings, but, he's been telling me that he's looking for someone to take the role of doing the lead vocals, to do his songs. So I said, oh, really cool. Wow. So he got us in touch, and we did Messenger on Facebook, and his name's Clay, and he's a guy from California, and originally he did professional like heavy metal and really heavy metal rock bands. I guess our band was more on the pop heavy side or hard rock side. Chattering Man, I'm going to get to that, but he had done some really heavy stuff as well. Really distorted electric guitars and pounding drums and screaming vocals. So that wasn't, obviously I'm not a screaming type vocalist, and I wasn't then either. Certainly, if anything, I can do better now if I need to, because I know how to use my voice properly. But at the time, I wasn't. Anyway, we met over drinks and whatever, and dinner and drinks, and we chatted and we hit it off. And he invited me to, try out for the band. And he, over the coming days, weeks, he shared his demos of songs that he had written that he wanted to do, or things he was doing with the other guys. And he was singing, but he wanted me to learn to sing the parts. I said, cool, yeah, definitely. And I actually did like the songs. They were actually kind of like pop songs. They weren't really heavy songs, which I'm interested basically in all genres, but they were melodic, and and I felt I could sing them. Although some of them had a heavy edge to them, but they were basically just melodic pop rock songs. And he had said to me at the time that that's the direction he wanted to move in with this band and the direction they were going. So I tried out several, I guess, weeks later. I don't remember how much time had passed, but I had gotten a cold in between. And this seemed to be a thing that plagued me so many times during that period. For some reason, I kept getting colds. Like, we'd book shows and I'd get colds. And, so my voice, I'll get into the voice problems later. That's a kind of part of the story I didn't really talk about much in the essay. But I had a cold and I couldn't hit all the high notes and stuff like that. So I felt sort of like, this isn't the best sort of example of what I can do with my voice. But during the rehearsal, everyone was happy, even though I wasn't hitting the highest high notes. And a lot of the songs, actually, Clay has a very high voice, and the songs were pretty high. I have a fairly high voice. I'm a tenor, but his voice higher than mine. And most of them, the key was really pushing the limit of my range to be singing full voice in that range. But I did it. And even, like I say, without hitting all the notes, they said, yeah, let's, this is cool. This will work. And I got along with the bassist and the drummer. The drummer was Japanese, bass player was from Canada. And we started Chattering then. That was the beginning of the first band, and that was the end of 2013. In 2014 then, to get to the story of Chattering, the CD, the music, we recorded the first LP, and we did this before we played the very first show. Clay wanted to have a CD. He had a very, and I think still has actually, I just reconnected with him over this. I wanted to remix a song, and I asked if he had the original stems, from the files, the recording, the Logic files, and he said, oh, my computer had crashed, I don't have them anymore. And it just made me laugh, because that's happened to me multiple times in the past 10 years. It's been 10 years since this, right? Or the past several years. I got Logic in 2017, so My computer crashed in 2019 or 20, I think 2020. I think in 2019 actually there was a crash, and then 2020 there was a crash. My desktop computers crashed. My iMacs, I'll never buy one of those again. The laptops never crash. They're great. But so anyway, he didn't have, so I couldn't do the remix, and I'll get to what I did instead, and that's part of the story that's bringing up to the present. But I pulled this out and I was like, looked at it, and it's 2014, and this year is 10 years. And, if anyone's really paying attention to my page, I'm into anniversaries and, marking occasions, especially when it comes to music I've done or things I've done, projects I've done. I did tribute to my Glass Gecko band song phase, which was after Chattering Man, in 2023, because I was turning 50 years old, and I had found some stuff in a hard drive, and I went back and I edited and put those videos up from the vaults, so I do these things from time to time. So with Chattering Man, I just realized it's been 10 years. So I contacted Clay the other night and I said, I'd like to remix, and he doesn't have, but we're in touch again, which is really cool. So anyway, just to talk a little about the band, and then to talk about my own tributes that I've done over the years, and the one that I've just put together. And then I'm going to make this, maybe a 20-minute talk. I'm going to shoot for 20 or 25 or 30 max, but I think I can go under 30 minutes. I want to keep this fairly short. We all got along fine, and we all, in the beginning anyway, we all, so we got together, we recorded the CD. I recorded all the vocals at Clay's house using the same mic I'm using now. Actually, the mic I'm using now, and I've been using forever for all my solo recordings and all the stuff I do, and This Dark Shroud with Joe and everything, and is an Audio-Technica mic that Clay had, and it was a USB mic, and I bought it, and I've been using it ever since. So that's one of the influences of Chattering Man on my music. The other thing is, as I said, I wrote my first ever songs for this, and they were all written, and I've talked about this before, a cappella, because I couldn't play guitar. I couldn't play a single chord on guitar, nor could I play piano. I mean, if I had a piano, I suppose I could have found the keys, but I didn't have a piano. I didn't have a keyboard. I didn't have a MIDI yet. I wasn't using Logic or even GarageBand yet. That comes with my band. I started using GarageBand and then later Logic with my band and after my band. So that's Glass Gecko. That's a totally different story that I'm not going to get into much, if at all, apart from what I've said. So Chattering Man, maybe at the very end I'll just mention them, because that's the end of the story of Chattering Man. But we, like I say, I wrote these songs a cappella. I wrote 3 songs that ended up going on to this CD. And the first of them is called Once, and it was literally the first song I ever wrote. And it's this kind of really corny, romantic, overly emotional. To my ears now, and listening to the lyrics I listened to it again today, actually, and I thought maybe I should include this somewhere. And I just started laughing, almost crying in just laughter that this was the song that I wrote, and these were the lyrics that I wrote at the time. Very sentimental, very sort of overly romantic to my ears today. The Clay's arrangement is really wonderful. I think he sensed what I was going for in the a cappella with no instrumentation, that it's a kind of blues song, And so it's a kind of blues rock arrangement. It's kind of a ballad. It's a blues ballad in his arrangement. And anyway, Once is a song best forgotten from my perspective. As far as an original song that I wrote or that we wrote together, although Clay's arrangement actually really is quite good, and his playing on the track is really good. So it may be worth listening to just for that, but we'll put that one aside. The other 2 I really do want to talk about, and I'm gonna mention, because they're on this compilation that I've just made that I'll be sharing, which is a tribute to Chattering Man. I'm going to talk about that after. The first of my songs, after Once, or 2, is Stupid Man. And Stupid man, wake up and despise the world. Stupid man, stay up and destroy the world. You don't hear a thing, keep on missing, you don't. I don't remember the lyrics. Keep on pissing, one day you're gonna lose everything. And then you stupid man. And that was the basic song and the basic melody. And Clay made it a really roaring, heavy rock song with with pounding drums. And our drummer was very much influenced by John Bonham. It was a very Zeppelin-esque drummer, a Japanese guy, and just really ripping song. And it's like 3 minutes or less in the original, I think, the Chattering Man version. I'm not looking at it now, but it's a very short song. That became like our anthem in a way. I don't know if Clay would agree with that, but I mean, not our anthem, but that was a kind of popular song to do live. And I think Clay also felt that, and we almost always threw that in a set. It was a short song. It was, I think there were shows where we actually closed with it later on, and people just really dug that song. And Clay's arrangement again was perfect for that song and for that band. As a hard rock band, it was just great. And the CD version, actually, I remember well. I did 2 takes of the vocals, and I wasn't sure about the first take, but it wasn't bad. And then I did a second take, and I was like, I can't decide. And Clay's like, let's put them together. And I was like, what? And he goes, oh yeah, I can just layer them. And I was like, you can? This is before I knew the first thing about Logic or recording, right? Again, this is right, my learning curve. So I was like, oh really? And so he layered the 2 versions, and they just sort of work perfectly. Obviously they're not in perfect sync, but it sounds like a kind of double voice. And there are parts where, it's slightly different, where I'm going up or I'm going down with my voice. And it just worked perfectly. And then he also layered, of course, his guitar. He does rhythm guitar and solos on top and stuff. And he arranged and he mixed. So that was Stupid Man. And live, as I say, that became a really popular song. And people always asked me, guys always asked me, who's the Stupid Man of your song? And it was like, no one gets it with, I'm not going to say. All right. So the other song that I wrote a cappella that made it onto the CD, and it's the longest song on the CD, at 6 or 6.5 or something like that. I think it's under 7 minutes, but and it's also the title of the CD, Chattering. And getting back to the title, Clay had a different name for the band. The band name, I too want to talk about, Chattering Man. How this came about, because actually it was my idea. Because Clay already had a name for his band, which was Cake Punch. And actually, after Chattering Man broke up, Clay did Cake Punch as a trio, which is what they were before I joined as vocalist. Clay was singing his own songs, and he kind of wanted to have a vocalist taking the lead so that he could concentrate on guitar. And he always sang backing vocals, and he wanted to harmonize. And we did really great harmonies. It was like Boston or something. It was cool, And he would do the higher part always, because his voice is so high. And I mean, I've got a high voice, but his voice was higher than mine. So he always took the higher part, almost always. Anyway, it was Cake Punch. And I said, Clay, I'm coming into this band from the outside, but, to be honest with you, that name doesn't feel right to me. And now I was all full of ideas of like what the image I wanted for the band. And my music's kind of dark, and I knew it wasn't going to be like a gothic music band or an industrial music band or anything like this. And I wasn't doing electronics at all at the time. I was just singing, and I played the tambourine on the stage. I would dance around with a tambourine and stuff. I'll get to that. But and I said, Cake Punch it sounds like a party band, and that's not really what I think this is going to end up being. And I said, I don't remember if he asked me for a suggestion or if I had it, because the name Chattering Man, twofold. The one influence was my friend James Izzo, whom I've spoken about many times on this page in different contexts. He was an electronic artist. I mean, he made electronic music. He was born without hands. He died young. He died actually the year I came to Fukuoka, 2011, which is, of course, where I met Clay and the guys. It's almost 20 minutes. It's definitely going to be at least 30 minutes, this talk, unless I edit it. So, yeah. So, he had a song on his final album. The first album he made, or bona fide with his label, was Abnormal Love, and I played drums on the album, and I also introduced him, not because I knew her, but I suggested he get in touch with Jarbo of Swans, and he did, and they did a collaboration on that album. I later covered that song in my own version years later. This was 2020 during COVID, In Sweet Sorrow. But James had a song called The Chattering Man, and I told Clay, and I actually played the song for him, and I said, this is the name, I've been thinking of using this name Chattering Man for something, and I was actually thinking of using it for, I was thinking of doing an indies journal, like an online journal for experimental fiction, because I had gone to Brown and I was publishing fiction a lot before I'd gotten back into music. I came to QDI after doing Brown in creative writing and teaching literature. So now I'm getting back into music. I said I really would love to use Chattering Man as a name, and Clay said let me sleep on it, and he did, and he said yeah, I think it'll work, that's cool. So Chattering now, the Chattering Man was the name of the band, became the name of the band with me in it, right? It later became Cake Punch again, or went back to that after I left, and the three of them continued as Cake Punch, with Clay singing his own songs and so on, and writing some new things, I think, too. Chattering, the name of the CD, was the song I wrote. Now, when I sat down to write the song Chattering as an a cappella song, I had thought to myself, I want to make this a kind of, actually an anthem or a theme song in a way, for the band. As long as I'm in the band and I'm the lead singer for the band, it was basically Clay's band, if you will. But Clay and I were kind of the faces, or the frontmen, faces of the band. And of course the singer, the vocalist has the mic and stuff. So that's how it went. And I wrote the song and I sent it to Clay, and I guess he liked it, he liked it. And he made this thing into like I think this is a really fascinating piece from this band, actually. It's really heavy, and it's really, it is anthemic, actually. It's like a progressive, it's like a prog rock piece, the way that it, like comes in and then goes out like da 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 gong, silence, da 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 gong. And it's got, he even put the what do you call the mellotron? He had a mellotron, a real mellotron, not a sampled one. He put the mellotron in there. Basically he's a guitarist, but he could play a few, kind of chords, like, and put the mellotron, and he did for other pieces on here too, which was really, really cool. And it gives it that kind of 1970s Led Zeppelin, actually, or I don't know, the 70s, 60s, 70s, the mellotron. Those, they've got the reels of tape and make it sound like tape strings or something. So it's really, really, I love this, and it's a really weird piece, because it is kind of like a rock opera song. And the lyrics that I wrote came from, not from James Izzo, not from his song, The Chattering Man. Actually is totally different, but from two things. The main one being man by the name of Schreber, who wrote, he was a lawyer in Germany, and he was a schizophrenic, and he originally was a lawyer, and then he could, kind of wasn't able to do it anymore, and he was put in a sort of asylum, and he's writing this thing from that place and talking about the birds talking outside to each other, to him. I don't remember, like, they're speaking in different tongues, and he could sort of understand the bird language. And there was this thing about these rays, that there were these rays, and the rays of God and rays of light, and people were coming to visit him, and they were dissolving. They were transparent people, or they were dissolving into light, things like this. So my lyrics were all about this kind of thing. I am a man of subtle words. I keep my madness to myself. And in the trees, the little birds, they tend to talk among themselves. And when I open up my mouth, so many demons do fly out. When I open up my mouth, so many monsters try and shout. So the kind of A chorus, A, B choruses were like the Schreber Memoirs of My Nervous Illness, it's translated as. Stuff that came from that. And of course I was doing literature and writing, and Nabokov, and I wrote a paper about Nabokov and Schreber that I eventually published as an academic paper. So that was in my mind when I wrote the lyrics. But the Chattering Man chorus part was more, there's another reference here. There was an artist who lived, he committed suicide at I don't remember his age. I think he was in his 40s or something. But it was 1984, I think, he died. He was a Japanese artist and a kind of undergroundish, I mean, he's not well known, who went to Europe, Germany and other places. And he used to paint pictures of like hobos, drunk people, people gambling, old women with, hunchbacks, kind of grotesque figures, if you will. And I use that word almost like, Sherwood Anderson, grotesque. They're just sort of, broken people. He was, for some reason, that was his thing. He was interested. And he was actually a very good looking man. He was a nice looking guy. You know what I mean? He was a handsome guy, and he did self-portraits at the end, but he always had this glum face on, he reminds me of, a little bit of, Bacon, Francis Bacon. Not quite as horrific, but like his paintings are dark, very dark, and the self-portraits are dark. And the last couple ones he did were of him, like one is like he's a clown, and it's really a red painting. He's like a clown. And another one or he wasn't a clown. That's right. It's like I think it's a clown holding a bottle of alcohol, something, liquor. I think that's what it was. It's like this red clown. And the last one he did was he's taking his face off of his face. So his head is like just this orb, like a stand-in for a face. It's like this oval thing. And he's holding his face like a mask in his hand. But the chattering man, the chorus, I open my mouth, the demons come out. He did a painting called Chattering, or that's how it's translated in English. I think it was oshaberi in Japanese. It's like to be talkative. And there are these things coming out. The butterflies coming out. That's right. No, moths coming out. Excuse me. There are moths coming out of his black moths coming out of his mouth. That's what it was. It wasn't butterflies. There are black moths coming out of his mouth, and it's really like, whoa. You can see exactly what he's thinking or feeling about himself, that when he talks, it's like these black moths in his mouth. It's a self-portrait with the moths coming out. And there was a precedent for that, right? There's other things. There's these Buddhist iconography where they have these people with these, it's like, I think they're reciting the scripture or something. It's like the Buddhist ideas or something coming out of the mouth. I did study Buddhism. I don't know exactly that one. I don't remember, but there is an image sort of similar like that. And I almost think that maybe Kamoi, because he's Japanese, he would have known the Buddhist iconography was taking that idea. But so when I open up my mouth, so many demons fly out. The monsters scream and shout, I'm a chattering man. So I combined all these things, Schreber's madness and chattering, the Kamoi Rei chattering painting that he made. And also the chattering man came from my friend James, who actually had schizophrenia and died young. Now that's maybe just a tenuous connection to Schreber, because Schreber lived in the, he wrote this thing, 100 some years ago in Germany. And my friend James just happened to have schizophrenia. And Kamoi Rei committed suicide. I don't think he went crazy, but I do think he had a very deep depression and he was ill. And he felt that he had run out of all of his ideas and his life was over, because his life was his art and that was it. He was like, I can't do anymore. Another of the final paintings, which is a huge one, I actually saw it in person. That's how I was introduced to him. I saw there was at the museum in Hiroshima, when I was living in Hiroshima, before coming to Fukuoka, before Brown University, but after my first master's degree in Japanese literature. Museum had his, paintings, and this huge painting. You walk into the room, the way they had it set up, and this thing just like, it's there before you, like covering the wall. And it's a painting of him sitting in front of a blank canvas, looking kind of like, confused, or what do I do now? And all of his painting, not all, but many of the characters he had painted, things he had painted, people he had painted, are surrounding him. They're all standing there kind of like, representing themselves, and he's there without a single idea. He's just got a blank canvas. He's got like a metaphorically writer's block, except he's painting. And that was the end. And then the one where he's taking his face off and the red clown, those are like the final paintings. But Chattering was another one. So I just talked about the songs. I talked about the ideas that went behind. It's almost 30 minutes. Let me wrap up the talk. So very briefly, Chattering Man, we were together for about 2 years, or a year and a half, 2 years. I think actually our last show might have been at the very beginning of 2016. I don't remember exactly. I think it was. I think we had a show booked either at the very end of 2015 or even the beginning of 16, which I had started doing my own band. As I said at the end of the story, I'll just mention them briefly. I had written, actually, I do want to tell this part of the story because I wrote also the songs Phantom and City of Masks while I was in Chattering Man. Those were also a cappella songs, and I was writing a bunch of other a cappella songs. Clay arranged those two. They didn't go on this CD because this was recorded 2014 before those songs had been arranged. I don't remember had I written them or not written them. They may have come later. But Clay had not arranged all of the a cappella songs I had done by that point. I don't remember which. I think definitely City of Masks came later because for Phantom and for Chattering in the beginning, I was wearing a Venetian half mask. And I'll get a screenshot of that because I have a video on my page of us doing Phantom, and I'll put the link to that too. So during Chattering at first, and then later for Phantom, and then even later, I wrote City of Masks, which was based on, actually both Phantom and City of Masks were based on stories I'd written. Phantom, I think it was. Anyway, I had a story called Phantom that actually I reread this year and did a thing with. But actually, that story has nothing to do with the song. So maybe that wasn't based on the story. Maybe the story was based on the song, actually. But City of Masks was the opposite. It was based on a story I wrote when I first came to Fukuoka in 2011 after Brown, and I noticed all these people wearing masks. Now that song made came back in 2020 when COVID came. Now, the other part I want to talk about just before I finish is that those songs, especially Phantom, City of Masks, I did solo versions, and Phantom I've arranged and rearranged many times, became part of my Angel of Death in 2017 album. It went on the first version, but not the second. Interestingly, I replaced it with Red Signals the second time around. But Phantom was on the original version, and in more recent years, 2023, I did acoustic version for my 50-year album, which also had a lot of my Glass Gecko era songs rearranged on it for acoustic versions. And City of Masks, I revived, as I say. I did an electronica version of it in 2018, I think, and I went back to it in 2020 because of COVID. Chattering the song, so let me get to this. I did a version of it called Shattered Man in 2018, I think, or 17 or 18. And I did one version of it. And then in 2021 during COVID, this was after I had revived City of Masks, and I did an album called Redux, which was all remixes. I remixed Black Nailed, I was in the bathroom. I've done those things a million times. I've remixed those songs. But 2021, those were the latest mixes at the time. And one of the songs I went back to also, another was Shattered Man. And I totally remixed and rearranged. So today, literally today, this morning, I did the new version of Chattering. I did Chattering 2024. Earlier this year, I'd done Phantom 2024, which was my way of, I wanted to do a band sounding version, or a heavy, harder rock version, where I played the Telecaster, I played the drums in the studio. That was earlier this year. It has some electronic sounds in it too, using the calculator pad and stuff, and some noise. But Chattering, I'd done Shattered Man, but I'd never done Chattering as Chattering. And so I decided to bring it back to its kind of a cappella roots today. I didn't even use the USB mic, and I just sort of recorded it, put it in Logic, played with the voice a little bit. I effectorized the choruses only. I wanted the voice to not be effectorized the whole way through. And then I was going to just leave it a cappella, and I thought it might be a little bit more interesting if I put some other things in. So I put some, just a little bit of guitar improv and acoustic improv, very abstract, and piano improv. And some at the end sounds of myself chatting like a talk like this with some effects on it. So Chattering 24, I just put the video up today. That was the other thing I want to mention. Chattering 24. And finally, so Anyway, the band went until the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, when I started focusing more on my own band, because I was writing more and more songs. I started playing the guitar. I bought an acoustic guitar. Actually, the bassist of this band went with me to the music store to help me pick it out. It was a Yamaha. I only played it for less than a year before I got this guitar. Actually, it's right here, my Ibanez guitar, which I still have. And I played this in Glass Gecko, and this was my main guitar until 2022. When I got my guild. And I also had the Telecaster from 2016 with my band. I still have the Telecaster back here, and my guild is over on this side, and a classical guitar that also someone gave me in end of 2021 or something. So anyway, going off on a tangent a little bit, but so this was the first ever CD I recorded with a band or in any way. My band never recorded a CD together. We broke up and it never happened. We did live shows, but we never recorded a CD. And then I started learning Logic and buying keyboards. And then I started redoing songs that, both from, of course, Glass Gecko, because those were my songs to begin with, my arrangements. That's another story. But the Chattering Man songs, apart from once, I've done... so there were 5 songs total that were my songs, a cappella songs that Clay arranged. So apart from once, I've done all of them. Stupid Man, which I haven't talked much about, I did a guitar arrangement, an electronic arrangement. So all of these songs in different forms, the original 2 from Chattering CD at the beginning, and then various versions I've done throughout the years, Phantom, Shattered Man, and Chattering 24, this year's brand new version from today, actually. And City of Masks, just the one version from 2020. And Shattered Man in 2 versions, the 2 mixes, the original mix and the remix version. And Phantom also, not only in the acoustic and electric versions from the last 2 years, but I also had a remix I did earlier this year, I called it the 50-50 mix. I used part of an acoustic version I had done sort of live at home. I think it was at home. It was a live version, and part of the original arrangement I had done solo and then remixed and blended. So 11 tracks, and it's called Still Chattering, and I'm going to be putting that up as well as a kind of tribute, as I call it, the tribute to Chattering Men. So it's 10 years since this, 10 years since I wrote my first song, 10 years since I became the lead singer of a band, 10 years since I started doing music again after a long hiatus where I was just focused on literature and writing and teaching and other things. And 10 years just flew by. And of course now I'm doing very different styles of music. And of course, even at the time, one other part of the story I never told is that when I talked to the friend of the friend, I said, do you know anyone looking for a singer, a vocalist? I said to him, I remember, do you know anyone who does electronic music? Because I wanted to do, experimental things, electronic things. I've always liked that end of the spectrum, as well as the acoustic and rock and those other things. But I was really, really, really like 100% committed and into Chattering Man. When we were doing it, I helped promote the band. I made flyers, and I learned a lot, being in the band and doing the band and about promotion and stuff. Of course, I'm not very good at that end even now. But that also, it was a learning experience, just like with my second band, just like with when I was with a producer. All those things have formed the Marc Lowe that sits here now, if that's just the name. But the person who's sitting here giving this talk. So thank you for joining me. And I actually asked Clay if he wanted to do like a Skype or a Zoom meeting to talk about the band days, and I'm not sure that that's going to happen, but he's a really nice guy. He's really cool. He was a little hesitant about using the technology for one reason or another. I said, that's cool. But so here's my talk, and I'm going to post the tribute to Chattering Men called Still Chattering, and the video for Chattering 24 is now on this page. Thank you for joining me, and see you soon. Thank you. Marc Lowe, Friday Night, Tokyo, Japan.